We're going to tie Dave Whitlock's Olive Dragon, or at least a version of it. I don't tie it the exact same way that Dave did, but even though we take different roads to get there, we end up in the same place and the fly's going to look the same at the end. Okay, so the hook I have in the vise is a Gamakatsu T10 6H, and it is a looped salmon fly hook. When Dave first tied this fly, he tied it on a TMC 7999, which is also a salmon fly hook. And the thing to know about that is right here where this hook return comes back, the shank's about 1.5 times wider than a normal hook. The reasoning behind doing this is because you're going to mount some monofilament eyes on this, and that's just going to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to tie it on a salmon fly hook because I already have them, but don't feel like you need to go out and get them. If you just have a normal 3 or 4x long hook, you can put some dubbing right there where the return would be, mount your monofilament eyes on top of that, use a little bit of glue, and you'd be just fine. So I'm going to come in here with some Danville 6/0 thread, and this is an olive brown, and I'm going to start 1 hook eye length back from the actual eye of the hook, and I'm going to start laying down a good tight foundation of thread, and I'm actually closing off that loop eye. We're going to go ahead and we're going to take the thread all the way down to the start of the bend, and on these hooks the bend starts a little sooner than it does on a normal hook, so we're actually going to stop the thread in between the hook point and the barb. I'm going to take off that extra, and then I'm going to take my thread in open spirals right back up to where I want to put my eyes in. I want to make sure I have enough room here to finish off the head. So for eyes, I'm just using some 30-pound monofilament. I'm going to cut about 1.5 inches or so off of the spool, and I'm going to grab it inside of my pliers. You can use pliers, tweezers, whatever you got for this. I would not recommend holding it in your hand, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here with a lighter, and I'm going to melt both sides just a little bit at a time. There we go. So that's going to make my eyes. I want to give that just a second to cool. And then I want these eyes to be really prominent or really dark. So I'm actually going to take a black Copic marker, and I'm just going to color the sides of this a little bit, just to darken those up. Another thing you can do, if you have some black UV resin, you could dip these in that, and then cure it with your light, and that would do the same thing. So to mount these on the hook, I'm going to treat them just like they're a pair of bead chain eyes. I'm going to set them crossways, catch them in with a wrap, straighten them out, and then do a series of X wraps to secure them to the hook. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my thread back to the rear, and this is where you have the option to add some weight. I'm going to use some 015 lead wire. You could make this heavier or lighter depending on your fishing circumstance and where you're going to be. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to hit this with about 10 or 12 wraps. And then break that off close. Break the other end off. Smooth those down a little bit. And you notice I put the weight a little bit farther back. I want to keep that underneath the abdomen and out of the thorax. So I'm going to go ahead and build a little bit of a thread dam or ramp coming up to the back of that lead. Wrap over it and do the same thing in the front. I'm not trying to cover the lead right now. I'm just smoothing things out and making a clean underbody. Okay, so now we're going to put on our shell back. And for the shell back, I'm going to use a product called Swiss straw. I'm going to cut off about a 2-card length of this stuff. And as you start to unfold this, you realize it's actually pretty wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it out, and then I'm just going to fold it in half, just like that. So starting right up here, behind the eyes, kind of right where my abdomen is going to be, I'm going to go ahead and start tying that in. I'm going to twist my thread counterclockwise so it jumps rearward. And tie that all the way back down to where we stopped our thread in between the point and the barb. Now this is where I depart quite a bit from the way Dave tied this. I'm going to go ahead and build an underbody with some yarn. And this is just cheap yarn that my wife had left over from a craft project. You could use thread, you could use unistretch, embroidery floss, whatever you have. The whole reason behind doing this is so that I don't have to put 6 pounds of dubbing on the body of the fly. And I know you guys probably don't want to watch that, so we'll just try to make this a little bit quicker. So I'm going to tie that in again. I'm just building up some bulk for the underbody, and I'm going to go ahead and put in my ribbing or my wire at this point in time. So I'm going to cut off about a 6-inch length of this gold ultra wire. That'll give me enough to do 2 flies, and I'm going to use my cheap craft scissors, not my good fly tying scissors, to do that. So one trick when you're wrapping your wire is if you take this wire and you come in and put it at a 90-degree angle to your thread and just hit that with a couple of thread wraps, that's going to put it right in place. Now I can pull that back to the length that I want, and I can keep that right on the bottom of the fly all the way back to my tie-in point. So I'm going to run my thread back up to where I want my abdomen to stop, pick up my yarn or whatever it is you're going to use, and just start wrapping an underbody. Again, we're just fattening this fly up. That's all we're doing here. So we're going to go ahead and tie that off. And trim off the excess. For dubbing, I know Dave originally used Antron. I'm going to actually use Wapsi Craw dub. This stuff is awesome, and it comes in about 1 billion different colors. This is the gray olive. So I'm going to get a pretty good sized chunk of that out. And as always with dubbing, less is more. You want to put on small amounts. And I'm going to go ahead and twist that on in a clockwise motion because I'm a right-handed tyer and I put right hand twist into the thread. And I'm just going to start building that body. Just covering up that yarn with some dubbing. It doesn't have to be perfect on the first pass because we're going to come back forward. And I want this to be nice and loose and buggy. There we go. I'm applying a little bit more dubbing than I would if I was tying a dry fly or a nymph, or a dry fly or a common trout fly. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pull that wing case forward, hold it out over the hook with my right hand. I'm going to pick up my bobbin over the wing case and pull straight down. That's how you get those centered. Now I'm going to counter wrap the wire, creating some body segments. And go ahead and tie that off. So from here, that shellback can have a tendency to get in the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a piece of a plastic drinking straw that I've cut short and I've slit open, and I'm just going to put that right over my fly to hold that back and out of the way. So we'll get rid of this wire. Maybe. And now we can work on our thorax. For a thorax, I'm going to use grizzly dyed olive hen hackle. And you can kind of decide how long you want these fibers to be. I like mine to be fairly long, so if I preen those fibers straight out from the rachis or the stem, I can have an idea of how long they're going to be on the fly. To prepare this for tie-in, I'm just going to sweep all those fibers down, pin them, and then cut a small triangle or tie-in anchor. And again, I'm going to twist my thread counterclockwise, have it jump to the rear, and tie that in. So once that's tied in, I'm going to go ahead and fold the fibers backwards, just like I would for any soft hackle, and start wrapping. I'm probably only going to need 2 to 3 wraps with this feather. It's got a lot of barbs on it. Oops, there goes my straw. Then I'm going to sweep those fibers back. trap down that stem, and trim it out. And I've got a few that aren't cooperating, so they're going to be gone. From here, I'm going back to my dubbing. I'm going to apply this a little bit tighter to the thread. I'm just going to sweep those fibers back and build a little bit more of a thorax right behind the eyes. So now I can take my wing case back over, pull those little legs out of the way, and do that same maneuver. Hold it out over the eye, drop my bobbin over, pull straight down. So now I've got my body and my thorax. It's time to make the head. I'm going to grab a little bit more of that craw dub. And I'm going to go ahead and start to figure eight those eyes. You build this head as fat as you want or as narrow as you want. I'm going to go about like that. Tighten up that last little bit of dubbing. And then for the last time, I'm going to pull my Swiss straw forward. Tie that down. Trim off the extra, and now I'm just going to build a little bit of a thread head. Come in with my whip finish tool and do a back to front whip finish. Tighten the knot and get rid of my thread. Now, I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but I've got a few rogue fibers sticking out, so I'll try to clear those off. Now, so the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab another Copic marker. This one's going to be in walnut. And I'm just going to take this walnut marker and I'm going to come right down the back and the sides of that Swiss straw. And this is just going to color our fly a little bit, make him look a little bit more natural. Then I'll give you guys one more option. If you have one, grab a dubbing brush, come in here and rag that out on the bottom, make him look real nice and buggy. And there you go. That's Dave Whitlock's olive dragonfly nymph. You know, remember, dragonflies are in almost every freshwater body and most fish eat them. So get them out there and give them a try.